This is FinTech Futures at Sibos, and I'm joined by Camille Papillard of BNP Paribas. Camille, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us. Just to get started, would you like to give us a quick introduction to yourself and your role at BNP Paribas?
So, nice to meet you. I'm Camille Papillard, and I'm head of the Financial Intermediaries and Corporates current line for EMEA at BNP Paribas. So it means that I'm heading the project strategy and go-to-market for banks and brokers and corporates for BNP Security Services.
Excellent. Thank you again so much for taking the time to speak with us. And you're speaking on a panel about the move to T+1 settlement and whether T+1 is a good fit for everybody. Just to get started, can you give us an overview of where we are with T+1 globally now and the rollout of that?
Well, the countries are at very different stages of their reflection or move to T+1. Well, today, the vast majority of countries is settling at T+2. But we do have a few countries who are already on a shortened settlement cycle. So you have Stock Connect in APAC that is settling on the same day, and you have India who transitioned to T+1 earlier this year. The big move obviously is going to be the US and well, North America as a whole that is going to shift to T+1 next year, May 2024. And then you have the UK who started a task force, so who is seriously thinking about it, and EU but also some other markets in APAC like Australia and New Zealand were just thinking about it. You have the EU that launched, I think, 9 subgroups about all the various aspects that they need to think of before moving. So very different stages on this.
Excellent. And what are some of the key benefits then of adopting T+1 settlement?
So the key benefits are clearly pre-settlement risk reduction and the liquidity that goes with it. So if you reduce the time between you trade on a security and you expect the delivery, you obviously reduce the time during when your counterparty can default. And if your counterparty default and you need to buy some new securities, there can happen also there can be some volatility on the market. And obviously if you reduce the time, you reduce the risk that prices go upwards or downwards. So the first benefit is really reducing that risk. Then maybe more in the long term or in the medium term, there should be some benefits on reducing operational risk, because as you reduce the time, you are forced in a way to streamline your processes, to automate more, and so we should see some benefits on that front as well.
Excellent. And obviously you mentioned at the start as well, some countries have been a bit slower to take this on. What are some of the key challenges then, do you think, of moving to T+1 settlement?
Yeah, well, obviously, not all the countries have jumped into T+1, and there are many considerations that need to be taken into account. The UK and Europe are quite different markets from North America, and thinking about Europe, it's a much more fragmented market, and so the story is going to be very much different from the US. You have much more market infrastructures, being CSDs, being CCPs, and different countries. So by the time that you need to have everybody aligned, it's obviously not exactly the same mechanisms. You don't have the same currencies, moving to T+1 is not going to be easy, because there are, as you said, some challenges on some instruments, for instance, where we see a lot of fails. We need to think about everything that happens before settlement occurs, be it funding, being foreign exchange. You have also, a lot of different issues that you need to solve.
Excellent. What are some of the unexpected impacts then for international investors as well?
Well, obviously for international investors, there are some additional challenges. So the very obvious thing is the time zone difference. So they'll need to work with the cutoff time that exists. So it will be a challenge for them to be able to meet the foreign exchange cutoff and then the funding ones. So international investors need to rethink a bit the model. So the very first obvious thing would be, for instance, for them to have to extend the working hours. But if we go one step further, I know that some of them are also thinking about relocating some teams to be able to cover the working hours in the right time zone. And if we go again one step even more down the road, some of them are also thinking about outsourcing some of the activities that were not the typical activities that they would usually outsource. So we had a survey recently with Value Exchange, and it seems that some companies are now thinking about outsourcing execution services, for instance. So this is a whole shift for international investors.
Excellent, excellent. And I mean, in light of some of the challenges you've mentioned there, what would you say is the best approach then for shortening settlement cycles?
Well, obviously there are a number of things, and I think we covered some of them, we need to think about. And so I think on that perspective, Europe is really taking a very cautious approach. So they subdivided the topic into 9 working groups just to show the extent to which it can impact the post-trade processes. So there is one working group about trading, about settlement, but also about asset servicing. This is something that we don't necessarily think about, but shortening the settlement cycle, you're going to have, for instance, some reverse corporate actions that you need to take care. There's some impact on securities lending, on funding, we talked about it, and on some foreign exchange, for instance. So we really need to identify all that happens, everything that happens before and after settlement, and make sure that they are going to be efficient enough to work under a T+1 shortened settlement cycle. So in a way, I would say there must be a phased approach, but not necessarily in terms of timing, moving, for instance, some ISINs, but really tackling the different aspects of it before moving to the shortening settlement cycle.
Excellent, excellent. Can you tell us briefly about some of the work that BNP Paribas has been doing in this area as well then?
Well, if we think about the US, I think the very first thing that we're doing is inform our clients. We are very well placed because we are in direct contact with DTCC, but also very present in the industry work group. So be it through articles, webinars, we've been telling the clients how this will impact them. Then we need to make sure that we'll be able to support the clients. So we started testing with them, I think it was mid-August, to make sure that it works end-to-end with the client. And when I think about support, it's also leveraging our dual office. So we've always had part of the team supporting the US based in Lisbon. And typically for when you have a shortened settlement cycle, it makes a lot of sense because you have a team who can start looking at what failed during the nighttime cycle, what needs to be fixed when it's still the middle of the night in the US. So this is quite powerful. And then we can think also about the extension of services that we can provide to our clients. to help them in that transition. And I can think about execution to custody services, for instance, where you have a client. If you take the example of an Asian client, he placed the order with the broker, so with BNP, for instance, as a broker, and we are able to instruct the settlement in the name of the client, so they don't have to do anything but making sure that they have the funding. We can manage the affirmation, we can manage the settlement instruction, and they have nothing to do. So that really relieves the client from a number of tasks that they would have to do in a compressed timing.
Excellent. And just to finish off, I mean, if you did have to put a year on when the global shift to T+1 might be coming, when do you think that might be complete by?
That's difficult to say. When we had the survey with the value exchange, it came out that I think 90% of our clients think that we will move out of T+2 within a 5-year time period, which seems very ambitious to me. I think I saw a date in the UK that might be 2026, so it's really tomorrow. So maybe 5 years is a bit ambitious, let's say between 5 to 7 years.
Excellent. We'll see what happens. Camille, again, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.